All right, welcome back to Return on Podcast. I'm Tyler. I just want to say thanks for joining today's episode. Question for you. You ever wonder what happens to those units that you send in to Amazon and they're not properly received? Have you ever thought of how to run your business in a way that maximizes profitability, helps you focus on the things that are actually driving top impact, top profitability, top enterprise value for your business? Well, that's what today's interview with Lisa Kinskey of Getida is about. You guys all know Getida. They do refund management. They do case audits for Amazon. But Lisa and I have a great discussion about how to dig in deep on the most important things in your business, offload the rest. Getida has a couple of new features that we want to share with you as well. It's a pretty cool tool. Lisa's a great communicator and an engaging guest on the show. And so, again, let's talk about how to find money in the market when it is important to be right on the edges. We're not having a domination kind of year in terms of profitability. We're going to have to live on the margins and the edges. I've got to make every move count. I've got to count every dollar. And so, hearing Seller Accountant and Getida talk through how to do that better is something I think you'll find very valuable. I also learned that Dockmaster Pro is not a bass boat. If you want to know what it is, listen to this interview for more. It's time to maximize profitability and cash flow. It's time to learn habits and hacks from the best e-com CEOs. It's time for Return on Podcast with me, Tyler Jefcoat. All right. Today, I'm so excited to invite Lisa Kinskey to the show from Getida. Lisa, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Tyler. I'm awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So before we hit record here, for those of you guys that want like a inside baseball under the hood here, Lisa and I both live in the great state of Georgia, which is really great all the time, but it's in particularly great here as we get into the late fall. I'm assuming things are beautiful in Woodstock like they are here in Athens, right?
Oh, stunning. Yes, it's like 40 when I wake up. It gets up to like 70 in the afternoon. So you don't have to stay, but you don't even have to cut your heat on most of the time, just a little bit at night. And the leaves are falling and the deer are all in my backyard eating. So it's awesome. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, so because for those of you guys who like made the mistake of visiting Georgia or the Atlanta area in like July, you're thinking, wow, this place is terrible. Why would I ever go back there? You'd go back there for October. Like this is kind of our Super Bowl. This is when you want to
Yes.
be in our area, and I agree with you. It's just so good. It's so stunning here in our state. But hey,
Yes.
I'm really glad you joined me today, Lisa. I want to have a discussion. We were laughing before we started that I have a lot of history with Getida. You guys have a great company. You guys really solve great problems for our sellers. And I think this is a good moment in time because I think people forget about this discussion about where money leaks, we lose it. There's a hole in the bucket, so to speak. And so I don't know. This is kind of an open-ended question, but like, what are you learning about sellers and where are they not paying attention to things in their business that really are costing them money right now?
Yeah, and it's less so of like not paying attention. It's just there's too many things to keep your eyes on, right? There's too many chickens and you can only keep track of so many. So, probably the biggest thing though in my mind that comes up is going to be your weights and dimensions. I think it's one of those additional fulfillment fees that kind of slips under the rug for sellers, and it happens just accidentally that sellers are overcharged. And the best example that I give is a consumer will order a purse online from Amazon, or to equate it maybe for a gentleman or other folks, just like a belt, right? And you're going to order a belt or a purse, and it's going to come rolled up real tight to make, the storage as cheap and as small as possible. And then maybe they say, oh, it's not the right color, not quite the right fit, not the right fabric. So they send it back fully extended. I try, but I don't package everything back like it came to me, right? Like
Right.
sleeping bag never goes back in the case the same way. Like never. So
Never.
so then it goes back in through the Cuba scanner because of the return, and it gets new dimensions for that product and says, "Oh, you've updated your SKU. Now it's 3 times the size it was before." And you don't really get a notification when that happens. Just Amazon assumes you made a change based off of this data that they have while it is erroneous, and you're now being overcharged. So that's probably the quickest one. And then also again, not that they're not paying attention, but maybe letting it slide. You probably see this a lot in bookkeeping and accounting of, oh, it was just like an extra cup of coffee. It doesn't matter. Oh, it's this one subscription. It's $10 a month. It's not a big deal. We see sellers a lot of times say, oh, well, I don't need to worry about filing for that reimbursement. It was just, 10 units off this shipment. It's not a big deal. I'm like, when you go through the course of your business, that really, really adds up. So
Yeah.
those are probably the two biggest pieces. I mean, outside of what Getida does, obviously spending way, way, way too much on PPC, kind of beyond that point of
Yeah.
diminishing return, right? And just throw more money at it, throw more money at it. I'm not an expert in PPC, but that's not always the game, you know? So those would kind of be the top pieces from my
In
perspective.
particular, right now, Lisa, like when the market is bullish, which it has been for most of our careers in the space, growth to kind of win new territory has made a lot of sense. But like as the market's been a little bit more bearish this year, I think focusing on the bottom line is more important now than it ever has been. I just want to make this comment just to affirm what you said there. I was looking at the profit and loss statements for a huge pile of sellers that we serve here at Seller Accountant, and literally, like if done correctly, like FBA reimbursements are like on average like 2.5% of the total P&L for everybody. So I'm just thinking about that. Look, over the hundreds of millions of dollars that we support here at our company, that's a gigantic leak of value that if you don't have some kind of a process or system to keep up with it, you can really be like, wow, why did I lose 10 grand last month? Well, I don't know. Is that less than 2% of your sales? It could be that you're losing money and getting charged the wrong fees from Amazon, or not getting those inventory items credited to you and that kind of thing. Right.
Right. And then everybody sees, okay, well, I lost this amount of money. They don't see it as a loss necessarily. It's just, oh, I have less, coming in, or oh, we made less sales or something. That's not necessarily the case. You're just looking at that number and saying, I would like to see more. Where can I cut cost on the product? And that's like, that's the last thing that you want to do. Like, yes, try to get better terms with your supplier. Yes, see if there's something that you can do to maybe, compact your packaging to get better FBA, placement and fulfillment
Right.
fees, but like don't start compromising the quality of your product at the hope of making it cheaper, ultimately hurting your business. Like take a look at your P&L. And I'm kind of glad to see, or hear that you're seeing it's between 2 and 2.5%, because what we have found on average is, reimbursements, those discrepancies will impact between 1 to 3% of a seller's business on average, right? And, because folks are like, oh, well, what's the fulfillment center where it happens the most, or what's the category? I'm like, there's no
Right.
answer, right? It's so random, but it's nice to hear that that data is kind of substantiated on your end too, with your book of business. Say it's between 2 and 2.5 on average, and we see between 1 to 3 depending on the business. So
Makes
yeah, it's
total
a
sense.
huge portion.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a lot of money. And again, in an environment where like everyone's making a lot of profit, it may be easy to ignore that. Just like you mentioned the extra software. It was really easy. And I don't feel great about this, Lisa, but we still pay for every conceivable streaming service in the universe here at my house, right?
Yes.
But like if things were to get tighter, if the budget needed to get substantially tighter, all of a sudden I would be motivated to say, okay, guys, are we really watching Hulu? And my wife's like, yes, I watched this one show. Okay, cool. Not going to touch Hulu.
Right.
Hulu is untouchable. Let's go to the next one. And so I think we have to do the same thing with our businesses. If we're feeling now, if you're feeling no pain, if cash flow is not an issue, if you're growing the way you want to grow and profitability is where you want it to be, then this is probably not the conversation that resonates with you very well, right?
Yeah.
You need to be looking at tactics to expand and take advantage of your strength in the market. But if this has been a year that's been a little bit more pain centric for you, I'm trying to figure out how to navigate some more challenging waters, then looking at the little things, like it's kind of like winning is on the margins. How do I find the thing that I'm losing my edge on? And it's fascinating to hear you give that example of somebody's gone the extra mile to engineer their packaging where they have a really beautifully packaged belt or sleeping bag, and in such a way that it actually saves money, and it kind of fits into Amazon's incentive program of having small and light products, only to get punished for that product having to be returned because it's the wrong color, and Amazon does things on automated. Like, it's interesting. It's almost like your more sophisticated product developers get hurt by that unless they have a pretty intentional process for not letting that money slip through the cracks.
Yeah, and again, it's just keeping an eye on it, right? Because it does suck to kind of see it as a penalization, because not every product is going to be for everybody, and things happen in delivery. Items are going to get returned. And again, this is a small portion of what we see causes these reimbursements. But, you're right. But that's why you have to keep such a close eye on it. So you can go back to Amazon because it's all automated and it just goes through that scanner and they make assumptions. And it's like, no, 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 this is this one-off example. Please don't apply it to the whole product.
Yeah.
It's difficult, but in that sophistication, you have to be managing your operations much more closely as well. I mean, you can't just, in my mind, optimize one portion of the business and leave everybody else by the wayside. I know what is it? The squeaky wheel gets the grease or something like that, but you've got to take care of everybody, at least a little bit.
That makes sense. So like in our business, Lisa, we talk about bookkeeping or maybe bringing on a fractional CFO, and there is like kind of a moment when it makes sense to layer on our service. Like for instance, if you're just starting to sell and you have $5,000 a month in revenue, it probably isn't time to be too obsessed over your bookkeeping. Frankly, I've started two companies. I'm an accountant. I didn't do my own damn books for the first 6 months of either of these businesses, right? I'm just curious when it comes to something like auditing or thinking about discrepancies, like how long after starting an Amazon business should somebody really be dialed into that problem set?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's funny though you say you didn't even do your own books and you were an accountant. That would be the first thing I'd hire out. My mother's an accountant and a bookkeeper. That's not how my brain works. Please somebody else take this. Um so as far as when somebody should start paying attention, my personal perspective is the second you start your Amazon business, you need to start auditing
Mm,
because the claim windows are continuously expiring. So what our service is able to do through Amazon's terms of service is do an 18-month look back, which is awesome if you've been in business for the last 6, 12, 18 months, and we can claw back a good portion of what was available. But in the example I gave before of the, purse or belt with the weights and dimensions, that is a much shorter claim window of 3 months. Some are 3, some are 6, 9, some 12, 18. But I really think that you should begin auditing and looking for these things from the jump so that one, you're not having to try and claw back money, spending more payroll and more of your time on the back and forth with Amazon. And then two, you're just making your business more profitable from the beginning. And if you're continuously seeing, these issues happen where your item is being returned and your weights and dims are being impacted, okay, what updates can we make there? If you continuously have issues with your bookkeeping side of things, I mean, there's just so many pieces of the business where it's like just start looking at it now. That's my perspective. And if you're it's so hard because often Amazon sellers are solopreneurs for so long until
right.
their product goes viral and then they need like a team of 20. It does take a careful eye, and you do want to have a dedicated associate to do it. But as your business begins to grow, as it's small, it doesn't need a full-time person on it all the time. Once every 2 weeks is generally what I recommend because that's gonna hit, okay, anything that's come in, once a month, I think is too infrequent. Um, if you have a big, big, big business, probably daily, yes, but like once every 2 weeks, go in there, pull your reports and say, okay, if I shipped in these 1,000 units and Amazon said they only got 900 and the shipment is showing as closed or they offloaded everything off the truck, where's my extra box of 100? File that claim, get it open, and do it as quickly as possible because then it's easier on, I would have to think, easier on Amazon side too, because they're not going back through lots of old data and records too, right? So my recommendation is always from the jump. That's what I've always said.
Makes sense. And I think the difference for us is, like you said, there is always some expiration date on any value. I mean, if you wait 5 years to do your accounting, it's not going to be very valuable to go back and rebuild it. But I think paying a company like Seller Accountant a few $100 to clean up the first couple of months of the year accounting doesn't necessarily have any kind of expiration date until you get into tax season. But I think for you guys, that's actually could be a little overwhelming for me to be like, wow, there are certain instances that are only a 3 month timeline, and some that are 9 months, some that are 12, some are 18. And so, and it's funny because you're talking about, oh, I wouldn't want to do bookkeeping. What you just described, I wouldn't want to do. Like, it sounds like the kind of thing that, like, it's like maybe we would be hiring each other's services first. I don't know, but it's like, wow, I want somebody that really understands the ins and outs and rule sets so that I can get maximum value. But I also don't want to think about that, to be honest with you. That feels like the kind of thing that isn't very interesting to think about. I want it done, it matters, but I don't really want to think about it daily.
Right. And then it's like you have to pay attention to the terms of service too, and how you file the claims, the verbiage you use. It filing your reimbursements through Amazon is sometimes like doing your taxes. They know Like when you do your taxes, they know how much that you're supposed to owe. They know how much you made, but they want you to fill out all the paperwork. And then if you don't fill it out correctly or on time, there's recourse. With Amazon, they want things worded in a particular way and they're looking for certain pieces of documentation and they're not always super forthcoming with what they want. So you need somebody experienced to do it for you who one is familiar with there's nearly 30 claim types. You want somebody who's familiar with all of them so they can get you the most money back. And then two, knows how to request that money from Amazon and work with their team so that you're not just constantly pinging them every single day saying, hey, where's this at? Hey, where's this at? Because there are people at the end of the day too, the claims team is over
Right.
there. And if you've been denied a claim and you keep opening the same closed claim again and again and not changing anything, not giving any more detail, they're eventually going to wash their hands of that and say, no, you're done. We're not touching this one again. So you want to bring in somebody who's a bit more of an expert before they get to that point of just shutting you down completely.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like I'm not, Amazon's not exactly like other bureaucratic systems that really have the noise, but they're a little bit. And I think I'm putting myself in the shoes of like what a terrible job that would be, by the way. Like I can't imagine being an auditor or something like that. But, you know, if somebody makes it idiot proof for me, they check all the right boxes, they use the right verbiage that gives me the green light to check the box and do what they want me to do, I'm going to be a lot more likely to give them what they want. And if they create friction for me, intellectual friction, or like, I don't know, maybe I need to like escalate this, that's probably going to go to the bottom of my pile and I'm going to get work done and come back to that later. And so I could see like doing it right, really just having just an outsized impact. I mean, what are some other of the like common errors that you guys see? And hey, someone's like trying to get into this. I know, listen, Getida, I know you're an expert at this. I'm gonna try to do it myself. Okay. Thank you very much. What are some of the things that someone needs to keep in mind to avoid in terms of primary errors that you see?
Yeah. So the most common misconception I get is, oh, well, Amazon already emails me whenever I have a reimbursement. So why do I need you guys? Yes, Amazon makes good on their terms of service and saying that they will reimburse you whenever there's an error on their side. They do that, but the ones they're proactively reaching out to you on are far and away the smallest percentage of what's actually going on your account.
Mm.
Sellers will get this email once every month, once every 2 months. They're like, "Oh, we issued you a reimbursement, so sorry for the mistake." They think that's everything. I'm like, "That's a tenth of a percent of everything that's available to you." The other problems that we see are not paying attention to, again, with weights and dimensions. I hate to keep picking on it, but with the localization of things or the geography, right? So here in the US, we use different units of measurement than the rest of the world. So if you're trying to file these claims or these update your dimensions for these products in your UK, EU, Australia stores, that's not going to translate the same way. So you're not going to be effective in getting that information. So paying attention to the location of the store that you're updating and then just reaching out and staying on top of filing the claims. That's the biggest issue I see again is, oh, well, I'm already, getting emails or I'm already reaching out on, inbound shipments. What else do I need? It's like, well, there's about 28 other claim types that exist. Like you can go get this extra money and we're happy to teach y'all how to do it, but it's that lack of consistency in doing the audit. And to the point that you just made, Tyler, if I'm going to need to escalate this further or go back and dig for this documentation or whatever, gosh, you know what? That's going to take me an hour to do. Let me deal with this issue right now and close out my day. And then I'll come to that in the morning. Next morning, there's some other kind of fire. Next
Mhm.
afternoon, you have some sort of meeting. And it just goes without the attention because you're a busy entrepreneur. So those are really the biggest issues that I see is you wear so many hats, and if this is a hat that you can gift to someone else and make you more profitable, I mean, why not, right?
Well, so yeah, as I was talking to a friend about this a couple months ago, and he talked about how inventory management is a game of not of superior intellect, but of superior attention. And so, like when I think about running a successful e-commerce business, there are elements of this business that are deserving of as much intellectual horsepower as I can put behind it: product development, product market fit, customer discovery, probably even the beginnings of the sourcing journey, that kind of thing. And then there are parts of this business that really are just a game of how many minute plates can I spin at the same time. And I've got to have that superior attention when it comes to keyword research and PPC and DSP and all the other random acronyms associated with Amazon advertising. I've got to have it for my inventory management. And so, like, when I think about the list of things that probably still deserve that attention, but are really easy to offload, it does come back to services like what Getida does. So, which kind of leads me to the question. You and I are in the same business in that we are generating value that isn't always the like sexiest value to our
Mhm.
customers, right? And it's really easy to get confused. I can speak for bookkeeping here. It's really easy to get confused and think that like bookkeeping is always just bookkeeping, and you reconcile a checking account and you're done. And what our job here is at Seller Account is to be like, no, 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 no. Like what we are is we're next level because we really get through due diligence and we have great investor grade books and our analytics are better and our reporting's better and our timeliness is better. I'm just curious when it comes to your universe, this kind of reimbursements partner, this back end partner for Amazon sellers, like what is it that makes Getida worthy of someone's attention when they might think, whatever, this is just some kind of a commoditized service?
Yeah, that's a great question because we have, in recent years kind of seen a little bit of a commoditization around what we do. Some of the key things that make Getida different are that we have the most comprehensive service on the market, and we're also the largest organization exclusively focused on FBA auditing and reimbursements. So we
Mm,
started in 2015 doing FBA auditing and reimbursements. It's all we ever planned to do. And what I mean by most comprehensive is we start with that 18-month look back and then do a daily audit moving forward with near real time reporting and notifications on
mm,
all of the claim types that exist. So that's going to make a big difference there. Another key differentiator that we have is our claims team are actually largely comprised of ex Amazonians who worked in the reimbursement departments at Amazon. So they are writing these claims through the eyes of somebody who would be reading and responding to the claim. And the power of that is uh, immeasurable. I mean, it kind of
huge.
is. When we do have sellers come to us and say, I've been doing these reimbursements myself, I think that there's more on the table. We have an over 90% successfully closed claims on first time filings, and then a 63% successful closure on secondary, tertiary, etc. filings where they had said, can I have this money? Amazon said no, and then like, oh, well, I don't want to do it anymore. So then they give it to Getida, and we're able to get them back. So it's the comprehensive coverage of our service. It's that we're exclusively focused on this, and the experience of our team. We have over 200 folks worldwide, and we're built by sellers ourselves. Yoni Mazur and Max Boren were sellers who had this issue, and they built a tool to work for their business. They couldn't continue to manage all of their reimbursements and filing through spreadsheets. Google Sheets was crashing, Excel was freezing up. So they said, you know what, let's build a dashboard. And then eventually other sellers said, ooh, that's nice. Can I pay you for that? And that's really how Getida was born. So a little bit of an origin story, but that's what really sets us apart is it's the dedication to the service itself and to our sellers.
That's great, Lisa. I love that. And again, guys, I just think about this. If we could rewind 24 months, the only thing that mattered in this space was optimizing for an exit. That exit was always like right now. It was
Yeah.
always to one of these private equity backed aggregators, and the multiples were really like frothy. It was a really nice market. And I think the market has changed to where now our attention just has to be on kind of like blocking and tackling. How do we run a more successful business? And so if you can envision your business 2 years from now, because like, guess what? The capital markets are going to open back up. I don't know when, you don't either. But I think in the next 24 months, we're going to see another moment and just realize that every dollar I can save and add to that profit SDE line is a dollar that gets multiplied times 3 or 4 for my exit value. And so now's and the reality is that I can't pay attention to everything. We say this when we talk about supply chains also, Lisa. Like I've got to find ways to pull more cash out of my supply chain so that I can not need as much debt, because if interest rates go up, I've got a lot of debt. It's a little bit hard to
Mhm.
manage. And it's the same thing with something like this. I want to create a sustainable system that's appropriately outsourced or insourced, whatever your strategy is, where I can predictably get the result I want that's going to add to my bottom line. Hey, one more thing I wanted to ask you about, by the way, Lisa, is I've been hearing about the Dock Master Pro, and it makes me think, because I'm a Georgia redneck. Is this like a bass boat? Like what is this?
No, that's so funny though. Um, no, the great question. So DocMaster is Getida's patented software to help generate a packing slip for sellers. Now it works for private label doesn't really work for resellers, unfortunately,
Okay.
but you can generate packing slips within our dashboard and send them directly through to Amazon to satisfy that need for proof of inventory ownership. So it just really streamlined the process. You guys are welcome to reach out to a support team and get a demo on it, but you fill out the data one time of your logo, address, your signature, and then it's a generator from there on for these shipments that are requiring this level of documentation. Dogmaster Pro is really exciting because we eliminate the additional clicks for our users. And it's all included, by the way. It's just an additional service that we offer. It's done for you, and there's no fee for it. I didn't mention this up top. Getida is performance based entirely. We only get paid when our sellers get paid. There's no additional fee for the 18-month look back. There's no fee for use of Dogmaster or Pro or access to the dashboard, or I'm super tired and it's Tuesday and I need another cup of coffee. None of that
Right.
exists.
Right.
So Dogmaster and Dogmaster Pro are really helpful in, again, taking some of that additional work off of the seller's plates and expediting the filing and completion of those claims. Because I'm sure as a bookkeeper, it's nice to have all of your numbers reconciled in the same month, right? That's
Mhm.
what when filing expenses, it's you had this charge in October, please file it in October. If you had this reimbursement that you filed for in October, or the issue happened in October and you didn't get it until the following March, that has to make books messy, right? So it's helping to get the money back much more quickly, making more profitable more quickly, and ultimately, as we're having this conversation going into the holiday season, giving you a little bit more to play with to order that extra inventory that you're going to need, or run those few extra ads, or what may have you. So,
No, and again, this kind of goes back to at least I'm here in Athens, but I'm a UGA guy, right? I'm a Bulldog,
mhm,
and if Georgia's playing a really bad team, then they win because they're a dominant force and they don't care about those edges of the game. But if they're
yeah.
playing a really good team, then it's who doesn't commit penalties and who doesn't turn the ball over. And all these little tiny things add up to equal either victory or loss. And I
Mhm,
think again, in this kind of market where it's rewarding better execution, like better operators, I just think you're exactly right. I think getting my $10 or $100 reimbursement, whatever it is, now is $100 I don't have to borrow to fund my ads or fund my operation or fund my purchases. And that's $100 I'm not paying interest on. It's $100 that is also going to hit the profit line of my P&L. It's just timeliness when it comes to somebody holding my money and I want my money back is everything. That makes a ton of difference. And again, in a world where everything is just easy and freewheeling and there's no pressure downward on any part of my business, I maybe don't care because I'm too distracted by other opportunities. But as
mhm,
things get a little bit dicier or even just more normalized, by the way, this is normal. Normal business is to have a lot of competition and to have a lot of need to do every little thing right to be
yeah,
successful. And in those environments, like we maybe are in right now, going into this Q4, this holiday season, having
mhm.
the little things done makes a big difference. So I'm a fan. I like it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, you said something there that reminded me. I don't know how regional this commercial is, but if you remember JG Wentworth, where it's my money and I need it now, that's kind of what we're helping sellers do, right? Is get their
Yes.
money back as quickly as possible. And that's a good point that you made. Now is a little bit more normal. And it's so funny because I came into e-commerce by way of supply chain in July of 2020 when everything was on fire and
Wow.
just kind of thrown straight into the wolves. And there's so many new sellers joining every day. But with the new sellers coming in, yes, there's so much more competition. A lot of them didn't make it, but those that did are the ones who've gotten really sophisticated, like you said, are paying attention to tight lines and blocking and tackling. So it's part of building a really successful business where, like you said again before, we've moved away from this quick exit conversation. You've got to focus on your bottom line. You've got to focus on your brand and really building something strong, because those, 7x multipliers, they're not there anymore. The days of 6, 7, 8x, those are gone,
Yeah,
unfortunately. And it's a different game
it
entirely.
is. It's a different game, and it's still, and I think this is the hopeful part, is it's still a winnable game. It just requires, and I think that's why, again, obviously, Lisa and I are somewhat biased because we like our services, but I think finding low hanging fruit opportunities to simultaneously offload something from your mental RAM while improving the quality of that element of your business, like those things become really, really important. And this is just my philosophy on it. This is not to say you shouldn't outsource your marketing or any element of your business. But the way I'm wired, Lisa, is whatever that thing is that's closest to my core competency, the thing that makes me money or kills me, that needs to be the thing that I need to spend most of my attention on. My dad always used to say, like, spend your time where you're making your money.
Mm,
And the things that are not close to that core, probably things like bookkeeping, CFO, and reimbursements and audits, are things that you need to be really proactive to offload from your RAM and from your mental space so that you can again pour more and more energy into. Even if you're outsourcing PPC, it deserves twice as much of your personal energy today as your accounting does. Because guess what? Accounting is something we can get right for you. Reimbursements is something that Lisa can get right for you. And so I don't know. Obviously, that's self-serving, but I just want you guys to think about that. What's the core competitive advantage of my business, and how can I spend as much of my not just time but energy cultivating that thing that really makes the difference in without letting these other things hit the ground. I can't afford to let these plates drop. I just want to find a way to offload them to where they're
yeah.
done and they're done right. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't agree
Anything else
more.
about that you want to say before we pivot to something fun for a second?
No, I think I'm good. I think we've covered all that we can. Let's get into the fun. Let's do it.
So you're in Woodstock, guys. This is not Woodstock, New York. This is Woodstock, Georgia. It's the real Woodstock, and
Quite different.
um, we don't just mourn when our Braves aren't in the playoffs anymore. We don't just work. Like, what do we do? What do we do in Woodstock when we're having fun? Like, what are the things that you do that kind of give you life and bring joy to you there, Lisa?
I live right off of Lake Allatoona, and I grew up
Okay.
in Woodstock. So I've always going spending the summers there on the boat or on the jet ski. The we call it the Redneck Yacht Club. It's Etowah Yacht Club. If anybody's familiar, they wouldn't be. It's extremely small, but that's kind of the vibe, right?
Yep.
Going to downtown Woodstock, there's a lot of fantastic breweries in Georgia, and a lot of them are Woodstock, Canton, Marietta. So hanging out, petting some dogs, and drinking beers and going around supporting other local businesses. I love buying from local shops and going to those craft fairs, of which there's one every day during this season. And
Yes.
that's how I've been spending my time a lot as of late. And then, some hiking here and there,
Okay.
whenever the weather permits. So,
So you and I both travel a fair amount for work. What's the best place you've had to travel? You're like, wow, this is great. I would definitely go back here even if I wasn't working.
yeah, domestically, or I guess we'll call it North America. I already knew I love Austin, Texas. I've been there a couple of times. I'm always happy to go back to Austin. I Before Getida, I'd never been to Toronto before, and I love Toronto.
Mhm.
Absolutely beautiful. I call it, sorry, New York, but it's a nicer, cleaner New York. It's a little bit smaller, but it's so much more manageable, and
And it
it's
smells fantastic. I was in Toronto a couple months ago, and it just smells, like, incredible. Like, if you ever had, like, tea olive trees in your front yard and they're, like, smelling really nice this time of year, that's kinda what Toronto downtown smells like. It was great.
yes, it's fabulous. Internationally, I got the opportunity to go to Prague for the European Seller Conference put on by
Nice.
Orange Click, and
Okay.
that was absolutely stunning. And by the time this airs, I think I will have already been to Australia. So I'm just gonna put into the ether that Australia is the best. I want it to be a great trip, and I'm sure it
There
will
you go.
be. But if I can avoid the spiders and just pet the kangaroos, then I'm good to go. So
Okay.
yeah.
No spiders, yes to kangaroos, totally get it. That's great.
Yeah.
I think for me, by the way, I got to go to a show in Bend, Oregon a couple years ago, and I think that was probably don't get Vegas is great, I've got, Austin's beautiful, New York's fine, Atlanta's okay, like, there's all sorts of great places to go,
Yeah.
but Bend was really cool, Toronto was amazing, that's great, we'll enjoy Australia, that's great. Lisa, thank you for joining me here for Return on Podcast today, and obviously, I'll make sure everyone knows Getida, but, anything in particular they should be looking out for? Actually, why don't you pitch your show real quick? Because you guys have a show also that has really good,
Yeah.
traction for sellers.
Yeah, we have 2 of them. Thank you so much for that. So again,
Mhm.
I'm Lisa Kinskey, Marketing and Partnerships Manager for Getida. You guys can always find us at getida.com, Getida or Getida365 on all of the socials. So we have 2 podcasts. We have Prime Talk, which is really about the people, and then Sellernomics, which is about the services and solutions. So I co-host both of them. Prime Talk is going to be biographical deep dives. So learning the story of the entrepreneurs behind the service providers and brands that you know and love. And then Sellernomics is a little bit more about the services and solutions that exist to help you grow your business. So we're going to be having Tyler on the show to talk about bookkeeping and accounting and having clean books, especially closing out the year well, starting off the new year great. And then there's a subsection of Sellernomics called Show Us What You've Got, which is really a demo day, a peek behind the curtain of the different tools that exist in the marketplace for sellers, so they can say, oh, that fixes this problem I have. Or, I don't love, like you said, paying for lots of tool stack. Oh, I have these 3 tools I'm paying for that don't, they all kind of do a piece of it. I want this one, so
Right.
our goal is to help sellers to find those solutions that really help them to get to that next level. So Prime Talk and Sellernomics are the 2 shows, both on YouTube, audio podcasting platforms, socials. I mean, you name it, we're there.
Beautiful. Well, you guys check out those shows. And Lisa, thanks again for joining Return on Podcast today. It's been a pleasure having you. And guys, we're going to close the episode here. I say this every time and I really mean it. You've made it 30 plus minutes into this show. Lisa and I are grateful. Your time is valuable. We hope that you glean something. Oh, and I almost forgot. Lisa, there's one more question I want to ask you before we close. We end every episode with kind of a tradition here at ROP. So is there a habit or hack or rhythm in your life that has given you an unusual return on investment? I didn't even cue you up for this, but this could be anything from like journaling, yoga, something personal, or something that's really made you more productive at work. Like, what's the thing that you're like, man, if you guys could grab onto this habit, I would recommend it.
Yeah. Make your bed in the morning. It
Okay.
sounds like such a silly, simple thing to do, but what it does is immediately tells your brain the quickest way to building self-confidence is to keep the promises that you make to yourself. And if you tell yourself, I'm going to make the bed every morning, it does a few things. One, it immediately fulfills that promise of saying, I said I was going to do it. I did it. It makes your space more clear. I know a lot of people are like me, where if their space is a mess, their mind is a mess, you have more anxiety, depression creeps up more quickly, but it creates greater peace in your environment so that you have this sanctuary where you can go to when you need to turn off. So many of us, we work from home. I'm working from home. Tyler, it looks like you're working from home.
Yep.
And you have to create this separation between your home and your office. And I also recommend take your TV out of your bedroom if you can. Sorry.
Yep.
But you know, just keep that as a sacred place and make that bed every single morning. It has made such a difference just to walk into my space and say, okay, I'm calm, like eases the anxiety, cuts it in half every time. So make your bed in the morning.
Great, great nuggets there, guys. Take that to heart. Well, again, Lisa and I appreciate you guys joining Return on Podcast today. Until we see you next week, we hope you kill it. Have a great week.
Thank you so much.